Welcome to Chat with Me. Today, in honor of Lupus Awareness Month, I have this beautiful, intelligent, and wonderful advocate for lupus awareness. I like to do good introduction. Good
I'll
solid.
take it.
This is Meaghan Miller.
Hi.
Meaghan, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I think when it comes to lupus, not only is there lack of knowledge, but I think there's misinformation that's out there as well. So I'm so glad you're here to sort of give us the right information. And then as somebody who has lupus, you can set us straight on what it's like living with that. So can you tell us a little bit about what lupus actually is?
Yeah, so lupus is an autoimmune disease. And typically with autoimmune diseases, as you've discussed a lot with celiacs, that it's just your immune system kind of being overactive and going in and attacking good parts of your body instead of the bad parts. So the thing about lupus is that it releases antibodies that attack any organ. Like there's no specific organ with lupus. It can be your joints, it can be your kidney, it can be your lungs, it can be your heart. Like every person that has it is different. It manifests in pain in the joints or kidney failure, or, pleurisy in the lungs. There's just so many different things. There's a skin form of lupus called Discoid Lupus, where people will get kind of like patchy rashes and stuff around their skin. Actually, Seal, the singer, the scars on his face are from lupus. So it can go after any organ. It's so mysterious.
Wow. And so not only could it affect any area of the body, it's probably the levels of how much it affects those areas is probably different for everyone too.
100%. Like I would honestly put myself, based on everyone I know, I would put myself on kind of the lower end of the spectrum. I've never had any major organ involvement, knock on wood. Mine has always been very focused in my joints and my muscles.
Can that change at any time, or is it usually like, okay?
I mean, I've been like this for officially like over 10 years, but who knows how long unofficially. But I mean, 10 years from now, my kidneys could fail. There's nothing that kind of like puts you in that spot. A lot of my friends have had kidney failure or have had close to kidney failure. But I've only ever had my joints. I also have rheumatoid arthritis, so that also goes into the joints, and fibromyalgia, which affects the muscles. So it's really it's an interesting disease to me.
Yeah.
Because the number one thing I always say is that lupus doesn't like to travel alone. It loves to bring along a friend. So a lot of people I know that have lupus also have RA. So even if like you have lupus and it's centered around your kidneys or something, more than likely you have joint pain too because you have RA with it.
So tell me about your journey. How did you get diagnosed?
So the funny thing is, if I look back on my life, growing up, I was always involved in sports, but I was always a little chubby and a little lazy when it came to it. And so I would find any excuse to be hurt and not play. I rolled my ankle a lot, like really actually did roll my ankle a lot. And I just thought, whatever. So I kind of grew up and when I was 23, so about 11 years ago, I just graduated college and I was doing an internship. And I started having really bad pain in my shoulder. Okay. And I carried a really big bag at the time. So I just attributed it to wearing it on that shoulder and tried to wear it on the other shoulder. Now, any girl out there that wears her bag on one shoulder all the time knows how big of a deal it is to move it to the other shoulder and how weird and off that feels. So when I moved back home after my internship, I went to the doctor and she did some blood tests and she was like, you have rheumatoid arthritis. And I was like, okay, okay. And she just gave me some arthritis medication and sent me on my way. That was it. The pain went away. I kind of forgot about it. Didn't really think anything. A few months later, I started having this really weird muscle pain, like in my bicep, where I couldn't sleep at night unless I put a pillow on my bicep and laid my head on the pillow and kept pressure on it all night long. So I went back to the doctor and she ran some more tests. And then she was like, I'm going to send you to a rheumatologist. Rheumatologists are the main lupus doctor because they deal with, they're big on joints and stuff, but they are typically your main doctor for your lupus. You might end up having a cardiologist or something with other issues in hand, but that's your main doctor. So I went to the rheumatologist and he ran some tests, and the thing with lupus is that there's no real definitive, let me back that up. They have started to come out with this really fancy, expensive test that supposedly is the closest to definitive that they can do to figure out lupus. 10 years ago, that didn't exist at all. So usually when people are being diagnosed with lupus, you had to go through this process of kind of ruling out everything else. Like, we're going to do blood work for this. And if it's A, we'll move on. If it's B, we won't. So they kind of did like some blood work and they were like, you definitely test for having an autoimmune disease. Okay. So then they did some more blood work and my doctor said, no, you have lupus. I've learned, for me personally, especially since it's my joints and my muscles, that exercise is really vital for my just my self-care with my disease. It kind of goes both ways because I'll push myself for days on end, and then I'm like, I wake up one day and I'm like, I can't move. I'm kind of learning, especially with this quarantine time and not having anything else to do, that balance of how many days can I work out and then take a break. But I definitely notice when I get lazy and I just don't do anything for a few days, that everything kind of starts to like hurt and fall apart. And then as soon as I work out, it kind of gets back into motion.
So I'm assuming lupus, just like any other autoimmune disease, once you have it and you find your people, you find other people who have been diagnosed with that disease or that ailment, you just wind up connecting because they get it. They get it on a level that nobody ever could. Is that the same with lupus?
Oh yeah. So when I first moved out to Orlando, like I said, and I started getting sick again, nobody in my world knew what lupus was. And when I was very, very first diagnosed 10 years ago, and I heard that word, growing up, I was a really big Backstreet Boys fan. And I don't think many people know, but Howie from the Backstreet Boys, his sister actually died of lupus.
Oh my goodness.
Back in late 90s, early 2000s, whenever they were like big. She might have passed shortly after that, but I knew that she had it. And I remember reading in maybe one of my like Teen Beat magazines or something that his sister had lupus. Only time in my life I'd ever heard the word. And then when I heard she had passed, to me, I was like, oh my God, whatever this lupus is like, you get it and you die, because she was so young.
Yeah.
And so when the doctor first said the word to me,
you were
like, I just started crying. I was like, oh my gosh. And then this is back in like 2010. So I mean, obviously we had the internet. It wasn't as easy to search for anything as it is now. We didn't have social media aside from Facebook and MySpace. So I did some research, tried to feel better. But when I got diagnosed again in Orlando, I got really depressed, especially since I was spending so much time in my bed alone. And when I started a new job finally, my boss was like, maybe you should look into support groups. So I did some Googling and I had found this one out of Sanford that I started going to. And everyone there I met was great. It was nice to finally have people to talk to, kind of like share my story with. And through that, they started, it was a small organization that doesn't exist anymore. They started doing walks in the Orlando area. There had never been a walk in Orlando before. And so they did one at Baldwin Park, very, very small. But it was like nice to kind of raise some money and, you know, whatever. And then the Lupus Foundation of America, the Florida chapter, finally decided to do one in Orlando the next year. And so it was when I got involved with them that I really started meeting a network of people. Yeah. Such an amazing networking opportunity.
That's awesome. And that's true advocacy, and we appreciate that. So I know that, as you said, lupus can affect people in so many different ways. What, really quickly, how can we gear somebody if they're feeling symptomatic, you know, what should they look out for? And what do you recommend if they talk to just their general practitioner first or go straight to a rheumatologist? What's first of all, what symptoms do you think they should
Like for a new diagnosis?
Correct.
So there's one thing that not everyone gets, but it's definitely a definitive symptom. It's called the Malar Rash or the butterfly rash. And it's this rash that kind of goes across your face like this.
Yeah.
That's how I know when I'm flaring, because I'll wake up in the morning and it'll just be across my face. But I think it's really hard because if it's like a kidney issue or something, they're going to look at a lot of stuff.
Right.
But definitely, like, if you are feeling just kind of fatigued or overwhelming kind of joint pain, muscle pain, and not like, there's a real difference between I worked out too hard,
yeah,
and my joints hurt, and what this is. I kind of describe it as like, it feels like the flu to me.
Yeah.
Without being the flu.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like that. Like if you kind of have that for a lingering amount of time, I would definitely like have that checked out.
And just like you said before, like, you know your body better than anybody else. So
yeah,
definitely talk to somebody if you're going through any type of symptomatic that's chronic, and push for some answers for sure.
Like I take my temperature every morning, which is a really weird thing, but I know that they always say that you don't have a fever unless it's 98.6. I know my body, and my body at healthy is 97.7. Mm-hmm. Like I know that. So for me, like in the morning, if I wake up and it's at like 98.3 or higher, I know that my body's starting to flare on something.
Okay.
So I'll usually take that time, unless it's higher than, like, if it's like in the 99s, then I'm like, either I know I'm sick or I am flaring. But if it's just kind of like in the 98s, like I'm like, okay, like I kind of like do some like anti-stress stuff, because especially right now with everything going on, every 3 days my body's like that because it's just so stressful right now.
Yeah. Is there a website or somewhere you could direct people to if they want more information on lupus?
Yeah, definitely. Just lupus.org is the Lupus Foundation of America, and they have everything on there. And you can go on the website is a section to like for the different states, and you can choose your state, and it'll link you up to the different chapters that they have.
Thank you so much, Meaghan. I appreciate you coming and sharing your story and your journey and educating us on lupus.
No problem.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, take care of yourselves and don't forget to take care of each other.